heavy metal. I've always been a massive ska fan. I don't know if that translates, but so yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of sort of outsider cinema, if you will, and outsider music. It just kind of like comes together, and so that's in a nutshell how I sort of found it myself. It seemed like a natural fit.
So talk about Chainsaw Sally. How did it begin? How did you all get involved?
It's a long, convoluted story. Let's see. Let me try to summarize. Let me sum up. We used to do a horror comedy musical called Silver Screen that was about horror movies with a live theater group. And it was really hard to market to horror fans a musical because most horror fans don't want to see a musical. But it's like, but this was geared towards them because it's all about horror movies specifically. So we made Chainsaw Sally as a horror hostess to kind of push that. And I kind of, Jimmy and I together came up with the character. And he'd actually thrown away, when we were testing names, he'd actually thrown Chainsaw Sally out. And I was like, are you kidding? That's the name. And I was right.
Yes.
So I based her personality, for me it was, she had a big crush on Leatherface, and she's a lot of tank girl, Bugs Bunny, but smart like Hannibal Lecter. So she was just a hostess, and we didn't really know what to do with her, but then she got more popular than the movie, or the play. So then we made a movie. And, I mean, she took off. We still don't understand it, but we're happy about it.
Right, and it was at like a perfect time because it's not as though there was zero strong females, but it wasn't like it was today.
Yeah.
You didn't have like everybody calling a woman who lives to the end a final girl.
Yeah.
So it was like finally another and like one of the only strong female characters, right?
And
so
it got
this
to be
was a big
yeah,
part
and
of it.
not necessarily the hero.
Right.
I mean, sort of
Right.
anti-hero, but yeah.
Yeah.
Actually wielding the weapons and chopping people up
Yeah.
with no good reason. Well, she thought she had good reason.
Yeah.
Sally thought she had good reasons.
And so then one became, two became the potential for a whole series.
Yeah, we did the first movie and it went really well. And then we were actually trying to get big budgeting for a Chainsaw Sally's 2. And then we got sick of waiting and we talked about it. We're like, look, we just like doing this because it's fun. Why are we waiting for a big budget? We're not moving to Hollywood. Let's just have a good time. So somehow Jimmy wrote it. We decided on a series with absolutely no budget whatsoever. Just what was in our bank accounts, which was no budget whatsoever. So, us and our friends having a very good time, acting like idiots. Yeah, coming up with kills every time somebody got on my nerves. Oh, that person cut me off in traffic. That's a kill right there. And then we did the season 2 because it worked. It was fun. We had a really good time.
Yeah, and
And that's why we wrote to you in this season 1.
yeah, absolutely, and I mean it resonates to this day. People still ask, you know, when is season 3 coming along, and I'm telling you, it's got staying power. So, you know, and there's so much story to yet tell that I think no matter what they do with it, and God willing, they have time and money and do something with it. Preferably, maybe somebody seeing this would love to fund or help fund this because people love it. I mean, it's good fun, it's well written, it's done by artists, people who are artists in more than one area. They're not just like either acting or directing to get famous, which there's nothing wrong with that, but they're artists, you know, they're true artists.
Yeah, we're more about making art with our friends because that's what's fun about
and
it.
it shows, and it shows. Yeah.
Now, Debbie, you are known as one of the great scream queens, and that you've inspired so many others to follow in your footsteps. Talk about that.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when I was first working in horror, that was the term that was always thrown around. And it was always referring to like the women who were working in the, thank you, Gabriel,
Doing that.
in the 80s. And even though I did make a couple movies in the 80s, they really weren't so much horror movies. Really didn't get started with like decent roles until the 90s. And the funny thing was, while I did start out playing victims just because of the age range and the roles offered, I really didn't click with material until it got harder. Meaning the characters were harder, they were complicated, they could be nuts and evil and the killer, or they could just be really, really emotionally messed up. Like it had to have like this certain type of depth that I could personally connect to. Now, yeah, an actress should be able to do all of that, and I do try to do the other sort of true victim thing, but it just doesn't, some people, they just not really all that believable.
Right. No,
So-
it's just not your niche.
Yeah, it's not your niche really, and so I always avoided the term because of that, because I thought back then it just referred to a weak female in peril needing a man. Then it's changed now, so now it's okay, but back then it didn't, it meant something different, so I avoided it like the plague, and I would always correct people. Then years later, I got tired of correcting people, and then years after that, I said, well, it has a different meaning now.
It does.
So
It really does.
if you want to call me that, that's perfectly good. And if I'm inspiring anybody, that's great too, because much like with April, with the Chainsaw Sally, when I did Jane Toppan in year 2000, American Nightmare, that was like, like a really killer, literally female killer role, and it just was not the norm.
I could tell that you latched onto that one. That was a good one.
Yeah. So I mean, we have like that in common in the sense that we're gonna have a hand in creating characters. If we have a hand in creating characters, they're gonna be strong. And so we didn't have a lot, except for the usual typical examples that are getting tired, like Sigourney Weaver and Alien. You know what I mean? The usual
the
ones.
usual,
2,
this
3.
is your strong woman, this is the strong woman.
Yeah, and there was so few of them.
She's amazing, but
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't the norm. So now it's kind of the norm, because after a while of it, I noticed like a lot of the actresses would just want roles where I don't want to be killed, I just want to kill.
Yeah.
Which was fine. Again, not to get too crazy on the subject, but why? Like, it's not just about your image as an actor or screen queen. Why do you want to live to the end and not be killed? Just for ego reasons, or is the character, is it needed for the character? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Great. So what's next for you all?
Next for me.
Oh, next weekend.
Next weekend, I run a belly dance show, because that is most of what I do now, which is so different from the Chainsaw Sally stuff. Except my belly's still hanging out. So, yeah. So I'm very much in that world. So I'm running, and also my theater group is doing a live 80s show. It's a theater group, but it's essentially a rock show. We're just singing, dancing, a bunch of 80s things. It's kind of fun. Yeah, we're so into the live scene now. It's just kind of a meet and drink. That energy of being in front of a live audience is so addictive. And
That's kind of where you started. It's like full circle.
yeah, I mean,
In a way.
film is fun,
Yeah.
but it is a very different feeling. It is, I think, harder.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that immediate feedback from an audience. Of course, you also don't have to rehearse for months. So,
Just two different animals.
but that's next for me. Dancing, lots of dancing.
Lots of dancing.
Lots of dancing and a vacation in Salem.
Nice! 25-year anniversary coming up. So for Halloween, when they got married, they're going to Salem to celebrate. Right on.
I can't wait.
Happy
I can't wait.
anniversary. So that's a lot what she's doing. I'm doing a podcast, Obscurities. I just happen to have this. I made this up while she was speaking. and this beautiful postcard here for Obscurities. It's a narrative about like weird stuff that's happened, factual stuff. Writing, working on documentaries, working on putting together some short films that are going to be doing shooting in probably like towards the end of 2023. A lot of this depends on the union strike, actor strike, writer strike. The writers are not union, but some of the actors are. So a lot of stuff is going, and a lot is like on pause. I'm sort of like union and non-union. I'm FICOR, what's called FICOR, which is, what is that? I could do both. I pay union dues, but I don't get any of the benefits of being union, so that I could do both legally, union and non. So that's what that means. So I am doing sort of a sci-fi thing in October in Atlantic City for about a week. So we'll have fun. So we're having all kinds of fun.
So how can people get in touch with you all?
Well, I'm on Facebook. So Facebook and Instagram. There's a clown that I really love.
Yeah.
As well as April Monique Burril. So you could spell April and Monique if you think about it. The Burril is 2 R's, 1 L. And it also says AKA Chainsaw Sally, so you'll know which one it is. I mean,
Yeah.
It looks like me.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I'm on Instagram, same thing, April Monique Burril. It's just keeping it easy.
Chainsaw Sally.
Easy peasy.
Easy
So
peasy.
you,
Me, everything's linked up to DebbieRochon.com. Easy peasy.
easy peasy, lemon
Easy
squeezy.
peasy.
Well, thank you so much. Really
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much. Thank